It is 6 o'clock, so I will call the meeting to order. Since Alicia is home with her new baby, I'll go ahead and do our roll call today. So Lacey Oster, myself here, Matt Foucault.
Here.
Bruce Blargen.
Here.
Sheree Lee.
Here.
Lori Blargen.
Here.
Marge Bill.
Here.
Ian McDonald.
Here.
Okay, our district mission. Together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. Is there a motion to approve our agenda this evening?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Was
All
that
in
Matt?
favor?
Was that Matt?
Oh,
Bruce, sorry.
any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I did not receive any public comment. Shannon, did you?
I did not. No.
Then moving forward, we will start with our Neola technical corrections.
All right, so you should each be able to access the link that was on the agenda. They literally are just technical corrections from Neola. Nothing of substance was changed, just a few minor words and details and things like that. So I didn't receive any questions other than Lori had sent me a couple, and Lori, I think I addressed those. Hopefully I ended up changing. There were two policies that were different but named the same. I think that's what you had identified. So I went ahead and changed that, but otherwise I didn't receive any other questions, but if anybody has any, certainly let me know.
I did want to ask about, or talk with the board about the fact that it appears all the technical corrections were made on August 23rd. And they were put into our active policies then, or shortly after. One of the policies had an option that was left blank and in the technical ones. And so I had sent Shannon a question about that, but in the meantime, I checked our active policies to see if this was an option that had already been checked in our active policies. And I found that all the corrections had already been made and were posted in our active policies. And the note at the bottom was that it had been last updated on August, it was the 23rd or the 28th, I don't remember which. So I don't know if there's a problem with that. I think it would be better myself if we approved them before Neola changed them in our active policies, but they are just technical corrections, so I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the board so we could talk about it and make a decision, I guess, on how you'd like to proceed moving forward.
I guess myself, if it's just a technical change and it doesn't change any of the meaning or any of the, pieces of the policy, I'm comfortable with that, but how other people feel. Thoughts from others?
We still plan on having like a regular session for a first reading after we get it hyperlinked.
These are just the technical corrections. They don't have a first reading and a second reading.
Well, this is not from the meeting.
No.
So you're saying that these changes are, if you look at the actual policy, they're already changed?
Yep.
That's what you're saying?
Yep, they're already changed and they're in active policies and they were updated back in August. I think it was August 23rd.
And I know Lori asked me to, and I didn't even know that it happened. So if it's helpful, I can reach out to Chris and just ask, is that,
Because he does that
yeah.
from their end?
yeah.
I don't think it has somebody's name. It's
Well-
not.
It's not somebody here, someone at Neola.
Correct,
just
so it's
updates
not
that policy.
someone in Somerset, it's someone on their
Yeah.
team that was
Yeah.
formally going in and doing that. But if that's helpful, that's probably the best place to start. I just don't know the typical process of, is that normally what they do for technical corrections with districts? If the board prefers, we can certainly tell them just to wait.
I guess, in my opinion, I would just like to know if that's the normal procedure, and if that's what they normally do. As long as we see them at some point, if they're just technical and they're updated, I'm okay with that as well. as long as we see them.
Anything else with the technical corrections?
No,
Okay. Then moving on to the next piece, which is still policy, but the policy committee update. You guys met this past week, correct? Any specific updates you'd like to, I know that we said with, those policies will be then linked to our work session at the October meeting.
We reviewed 34 policies. 5 of them were sent to administrators. I think there were about 3 or so that were sent to Dave. They had to do with financial. A couple were sent to the other administrators. I don't remember exactly which ones, if Shannon would like to speak to that.
Academic honesty, I think, I don't have my list in front of me either, but that one was one I remember for sure.
And there was also one that you were gonna send to the crisis management team.
Yep, on our suicide crisis plan update. So those have all been sent out now.
And the rest of them didn't really have anything that was anything significant that we felt that the entire board needed to weigh in on. If you go into board docs and go into drafts, you'll be able to see if Chris was typing everything in as we met. But we didn't want to put them on the agenda without the actual policy with the exact wording attached to the agenda. And with the meeting on Thursday and then the meeting tonight and Alicia out, it was a quick turnaround without some people being here. That would make things go more efficiently. So that's why the delay.
Hence why we'll see them in October. So stay tuned. Great, thank you for taking the time to do that.
Thanks, policy.
Yeah, policy. Okay, then moving forward to our superintendent updates.
Yeah, so I have 2 items tonight. One, hopefully you had a chance to take a look at the handbook language memo regarding vacancies that I am bringing to the table for the board to take a look at and have some discussion about. You know, this kind of stems a little bit from a month or so ago when administration had come wanting to do some shifting within the building. And, you know, this wasn't kind of the first time that this topic has come up. So frankly, the why is just really trying to give a little bit more flexibility to building administrators and administration to be able to work within the resources that they have in their building, to be able to make some changes and shifts, you know, when appropriate. That piece that we highlighted in yellow is what I'm proposing be added to the handbook. The 2 paragraphs below it are what's in the handbook already. So it's really just frankly asking for a little bit more flexibility for building administrators especially to be able to staff their building based off of needs and based off of sometimes unique scenarios to be able to do that work.
So by adding that first paragraph, would that mean it would eliminate the need to post a position? Is that the intention of adding that first paragraph? Is that if it's cost neutral, that it would not be posted? Is that the intention?
I wouldn't say that unequivocally that you would say it wouldn't be posted, but there are scenarios where posting just may not make sense based off of all the other pieces of the puzzle that potentially go with a staffing move. I feel it's appropriate to give our building administrators the ability and the flexibility to be able to move staff based off of a wide variety of scenarios and things that happen with staffing and all other kinds of pieces of the puzzle, to be able to do that, where posting may not necessarily make sense based off of licensure, based off of just all kinds of things that I certainly didn't list in here. But I would say there's certainly not an intent to stop posting vacancies, especially new positions and things like that. But I do think there's an opportunity here to put some additional language in the handbook that allows for that flexibility when it's appropriate and when it makes sense.
And just for people watching, I think we should clarify too, with this, it's the cost neutral is part of that equation.
Mm-hmm.
So not adding positions that are going to increase our spending.
Right.
But a position may still be posted. to apply.
Potentially, right. Mm-hmm.
So the only change is the yellow, or the addition is the yellow, the other two, the other paragraphs are what we currently have.
Right.
No changes to it?
I don't think so. When I read your memo, there's an addition in the second paragraph as well, the phrase, so currently our
Which one?
employee handbook says when a position becomes vacant or a new position is created, notice of such available position shall be posted. And your memo says
Oh, the budget
that
allocation?
requires an additional budget allocation. So by changing the
Yeah.
language here, if there is no budget impact, then it's appears to be at the discretion of the administrator whether or not to post it. And I guess actually the way the language reads, it looks like it wouldn't be posted unless there was a budget allocation.
So, first of all, you're right, that the additional budget allocation piece, that was highlighted on my copy and not on this one, so you're right. I guess I would focus on the very top where it says administration may work to fill a vacancy based off staffing needs of the building. I think, again, there's a little bit of, I guess, trust here in terms of, I don't think the administration has the intent of hiding positions and doing those kinds of things, but there is absolutely times and scenarios where it makes sense to allow that flexibility in terms of allowing the building administrators to be able to make some of those changes. And many of these things we currently do now. We've had a variety of situations happen over the last multiple years where we're moving a teacher to teach, instead of second grade, they're first grade, instead of fourth grade, they're third grade, moving buildings sometimes where those positions aren't necessarily posted because there's other pieces of the puzzle that.
And that is in the employee handbook now, that
Mhm.
administration has the right to, the district, I believe the language is exactly, the district has the right to place people where they need them.
But this is beyond just a placement. We're going back to, like you said, what happened a month ago with that referring more to situations that might arise
Mhm.
from that. I was gonna ask about the building. So you had said, this is worded needs of the building, so would that include that things could be switched between the district, versus building to building?
Our discussion was really focused on building principals being able to make decisions for their building based off of the personnel they have in their building.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And this will go on our next session agenda, correct?
Right, yep, no need for action. All right, with that said, I'm gonna move on to part 2 here. Hi, you're probably not gonna be able to see, because are you sure? I'm gonna stand right here? Okay. Put this down here. Hang on, I gotta do one thing. Oh, double duty. All right. So wanted to give the board and our community and listeners, whoever's watching, just a little bit more of a in-depth update regarding our strategic plan. All of you in front of you have a packet that's outlining the same information. The front page should not be new. It's just the same graphic you've seen of just the general pillars and the strategies. And what you have beyond that then is the first time that you're really starting to see now the action steps that have been created underneath each of those strategies. And that's what I'm going to give you an overview of tonight. So just kind of starting with a little bit bigger overview here in terms of why a strategic plan. I'm shocked at the amount of schools that I learned that don't have strategic plans. And many of the schools, even in our CISA, are schools that don't have strategic plans, which shocks me because we have been using this now for the last multiple years as truly our roadmap of how we do business here. And I think we've collected a lot of really important, impactful evidence of the work that's happened in the district as a result of our strategic plans. As you see here, you know, really important for this plan to be something that's created by an entire community, so not just school staff, not just school board, but trying to get as many voices to the table as possible to be able to really create something, and kind of what I have here in terms of a plan that is robust enough to be able to address the needs of our students and our stakeholders over the course of the next 5 years, which has become trickier and trickier to do as society is moving quick and things are changing in education quick and technology changes quick. So really having to be forward thinking about the things that we are putting in this plan to be able to set us up for success for the next 5 years. So just again, general overview, strategic planning, something that gives direction and focus to the district, being able to set overall goals, creating a plan to achieve those goals, and then hopefully to be able to improve our efficiency and our effectiveness. I won't read all of those word for word, but looking at the strategic planning process, again, the why behind why do districts do this. This is not unique just necessarily to Somerset, but really thinking about, there's that word innovation, looking at the right goals, really giving clarity for our community so our community feels like they have a really good understanding of what we're doing in the district and why we're doing it. And that last one's probably even more important, knowing what we've navigated the last couple months back into last spring, really getting tight on where are resources going, how are we using those resources to support the work that we're doing in our district. So looking at specifically our new plan, this was kind of the guiding question that we used in having all of our discussions, creating our strategies, the work that we did with the core community group. How do we ensure the Somerset School District prepares students for an ever-changing world? And really looking deep into where have we been as a district, where are we currently, and where do we see ourselves going in the next 5 years. Again, it's a lot of information, and this whole presentation is much wordier than I would normally put on a slideshow, but I'll be putting this on the website as well, so my intent was to make it easy for someone to understand that maybe doesn't listen to this presentation, that you can get an understanding of kind of the whole process here. So again, with our plan, really throughout multiple months of last spring, really focused on strong stakeholder input through in-person groups, surveys. As I mentioned, we had our core community group, teachers, students, staff, administrators, community, looking at collecting data. So our partner ed group, not only did we look at certainly our local assessment data, but also economic data, national education trends and issues, so looking just beyond Somerset. Looking at the directions development, so based off of all of the feedback that we were collecting, really trying to identify what is our community, our teachers, our students, all of the stakeholders saying that we are identifying as our key priority strategies for the district. And then getting that approval. So as you might remember, obviously as a school board, we brought this to you in June, and the following meeting later that June, the board unanimously approved our plan. And that's an important piece because obviously as a school board, your support and awareness of what's happening with our strategic plan is a big key to that success as well. So this is really where we are now, looking at the implementation plan development. So after we gathered all the information and we really dug into the feedback that we received, then putting that into an action plan. So what does that look like for each of our pillars? What does that look like for our strategies? And that's what we have here. So the admin team worked for actually multiple weeks, going through that data, really trying to develop a strong action plan, not only looking at short-term but long-term goals, because 5 years is a long time in terms of what are we hoping to accomplish. Looking at our resources, so really trying to get tight on the amount of time that some of these action plans will take, the manpower, what are some of the resources that we're going to need to think about and allocate to be able to execute some of the action steps that we have in our plan. And then really thinking about the outcome metrics. So how are we going to be measuring, are we making an impact? How do we measure that data collection? How do we present evidence to our stakeholders, our community, and the school board in terms of, hey, you said you were going to do these things, how's it going? So this is kind of where we are right now. These things should all look familiar to you. So we made the decision really early on in our process that we didn't feel it was necessary to completely start from scratch in terms of redoing our entire mission, our core values, and our learner outcomes. We felt that these things were still really relevant to the work that we're doing and certainly relevant over the course of the next 5 years. The next time we do this plan, we'll likely dig into this a little bit further. By that point, it'll be 10 plus years old. There may be some need to edit or to tweak. Many districts, especially once they develop their mission, they might keep that mission for 30, 40 years. It just kind of depends on where we are as a district and again, listening to that feedback. But these things are things that did not change. These things are a new component of the new plan. Again, as a board, you've seen these already. And you heard me talk about, we felt really strongly the need to differentiate the different groups and categories that we feel as a district that we serve. So we have a category for students, staff, our operations, and our community. And then we really started to dig into each of those strategies. Again, you have the same information on this document in front of you if it's easier to look at that way. But there's going to be a lot of information on these next couple slides. So I really encourage you, because I'm not going to read every single one. I know many of you looked at this ahead of the meeting, which is awesome, but after I get done kind of going through this, send me an email, let me know if you have follow-up as well. So I just want to talk general for just a minute. So with each of these strategies that you see here, so the 1.1, 1.2, 0.3, and 0.4, all of those came directly from the work that we did as a core planning group, the work after we did our data analysis from all of the surveys and the focus groups and all those kinds of things. So these aren't things that the admin team just sat down and said, hey, this would be fun if we did this. This is really truly the feedback that we received after gathering all that data and engaging in some really good conversation. That is also where we start when we start looking at our action steps. Again, these aren't things that we just kind of pulled out of, hey, this would be cool. Really doing some analysis of, let's look at our previous strategic plan. What did we identify as some things that were going really well and we want to make sure that we continue? Where are some gaps that we know that we need to fill in and do some work around that? We pulled out, I know if Lori and Lacey, you remember the big, huge yellow piece of paper? We had that in that back room for 3 weeks, and we were diving into that and crossing things off as we reflected them on the plan. Again, diving into all of that data to make sure that we were creating action steps that were reflective of the feedback that we received throughout this process. So again, there's a lot here, so I'm not going to read through all of it, but on each of these slides, whatever I've highlighted yellow, that's what we've identified as our action steps for this school year. So if you look at our students and the action steps for this year, 1.1 talks about personalized learning, and then you'll see 3 bullet points underneath here that dive really deep into what does that look like and what action has to happen in order for this to be able to be actualized, right? The word personalized learning has become kind of a buzzword in education. So we tried to kind of move beyond that a little bit and start talking about what does this actually look like for our students in our buildings if we really want this to be something that we say that we're doing and living. I could say the same thing for probably each of these, right? So 1.2, authentic community, career, and college experiences in our local and our greater community. This was something that we felt was going well in our previous plan and something we wanted to continue to expand on as well. We have, look at this bullet point here, foster local, state, national, and world partnerships for post-secondary option. So trying to think beyond just partnerships in Somerset, which are obviously crucial and important, but with the power of technology and all the things that are happening, how can we think bigger about giving our kids as many post-secondary options as possible, or at least exposure? 1.3 talks about social emotional learning, character development, and mental health of our students. So we again talk about our action step is enhance our restorative mindfulness and character development experiences. These were all things that were started in our previous strategic plan, something we didn't want to lose, and something that we continue to expand on in our buildings. And then 1.4, culture of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging for all students. You can see we have 4 bullet points underneath there. We have highlighted 2 action steps there. So gain student voice through student surveys 2 times per year to measure school culture, climate, and sense of belonging. And then conduct an annual equity audit to monitor equitable student access to programs and services. So for this pillar, these are the 3 things that we'll be working on and collecting evidence for this school year. It doesn't mean that something else on here is something that we won't be actively working on or engaging in, but these are the 3 action steps that we'll be actively monitoring, if that makes sense. Very similar, if you remember when I talked to you about some of my own personal goals for this year. You know, there's some pieces here yet where this is kind of part why it's an action step or why I would say it's a goal. Because like, you know, the student survey, that's not something we have created yet. But that's going to be an action step that we'll do this year with input from staff, input from students. You know, what kind of data do we want to collect that's going to be useful and impactful? Okay? So I know it's going to be a lot, but there's kind of overview 1, and these are the 3 action steps that we'll be doing for our student pillar. Okay? Yes?
Before you go on to the
Yes.
next pillar, could you tell, I am impressed by 1.2 bullet point 3, foster local, state, national, and world partnerships. I know we have many local partnerships, but how do you plan to foster world partnerships?
Good question.
Or national
Good question.
partnerships?
I don't know. Truly my answer is, we're not sure yet. We think there's value in being able to figure out, okay, how can we make some of those connections? But that's where the work will end up being done. So my answer is, I don't know yet how that's going to look.
Wasn't this when we used to go to Latvia?
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Oh, sorry. Too many. Oh, wrong computer. Oh my gosh. There we go. All right. Okay, looking at staff, I know this is tiny, sorry, because this one had a lot of bullet points and information on it. Reminder for staff, with our pillar, create an inclusive and supportive work environment where we recruit, retain, develop, and support all employees. So begin looking at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4. We wanted to really start with 2.3 and get some baseline data in terms of staff satisfaction in relation to are staff engaged, well-being at work, and do they feel supported? We feel like this data, especially with this bullet point, is going to be a major kind of kickoff point for many other action steps that we have here. But we want to at least get some baseline data of how do our staff feel things are going at work, frankly. And then part 2 for staff was creating a district wellness team. So this is something that was started, I would say, a little bit when Jody was here. Now that she's left, we're kind of pivoting a little bit, and we're going to be, I would say, trying to figure out kind of a different way to be able to execute this. I know we have some staff that are highly engaged and willing to take that on, which is awesome. But we felt like to at least start, because there are some really lofty things here, but we didn't feel like some of these we could even really start to tackle until we hit 2.3 bullet point 1 and really get a good sense of the feedback from our staff in terms of how are things going here. The last time we did this was school perceptions, and I would say 2 years ago. You know, the very last school perception survey we gave was heavy referendum focused, and not necessarily staff engagement focused. So we'll be probably stealing a few of the school perceptions questions to be able to develop a really good tool to gather some data of how do staff feel like things are going in the district right now. So those are our 2 action steps for here. Again, and just for time, I won't go through all of these, but again, just a reminder, so really trying to get, with our professional learning, making sure that it's relevant to our staff and feel like staff have the ability to provide feedback in terms of what's meaningful for them. Data literacy, this is something we've talked about a lot in ensuring all of our staff have the tools needed to be able to analyze data. I kind of talked about 2.3 and then 2.4. Ensuring that staff have knowledge and skills necessary to implement culturally responsive practices across all environments. So A lot of work. This one we spent probably the most time on because there was just so much that we wanted to do and had so much feedback from staff regarding, we probably could have added, I don't know, 10 more bullets here. But kind of in the end, we thought, okay, this is at least doable and manageable, and felt good about kind of our starting spot. Okay. Operations. So, upholding operational excellence by continuing to be good stewards of community resources while maintaining safe, secure, high-quality facilities for our students and staff. So, again, looking at the overall strategies, developing comprehensive communication plan for all aspects of the district, ensure safe and secure facilities, maintain and develop high-quality facilities and grounds, and strategically allocate resources to support student, staff, education and programming, facilities, community interests, and activities. So 3.3 bullet 1 was kind of low-hanging fruit. We know that we're going to be moving forward with our referendum projects, but actually just today I scheduled the weekly meetings that we'll start having with Wold and Market Johnson, which would be great to kind of get that process moving and grooving a little bit. And then 3.4, those two things should look familiar because those are directly on my superintendent goals. Looking at our compensation plan to be able to retain and recruit high quality staff, and developing strategies for increasing district revenue. This was another one where I felt like at one point we probably could have highlighted all of these, but trying to also make it manageable, knowing that this is work we're planning to do in 1 year. Then the last one, community. So again, engage families and community in a meaningful and collaborative way that builds trust and supports student learning. So again, looking at the overarching strategies, increase opportunities for family involvement, increase opportunities for community involvement, sustain and increase diverse community partnerships. So this was something we felt was really strong in our last strategic plan that we wanted to make sure that we continued to do. And then partner with community leaders to mutually build, promote, and sustain positive messaging regarding our school. Again, so 4.1 was very intentional, this first bullet point. We felt like we couldn't really move on with the rest of 4.1 until we get some really good information from parents regarding engagement and some additional feedback before we could start developing and tackling some of these other action steps. So that will be coming out at some point this year. And then really wanted to get back to expanding and promoting our volunteer opportunities. I think you heard me talk about this before, but really since COVID, it's been slow going, trying to get back in the groove of getting people back into our buildings. So we've got some good plans and some good ideas of how to kind of get that moving as well in each building, you know, making sure that parents know we want them in our buildings. You know, elementary, it seems to be moving much quicker than the middle school and high school, and how do we continue to engage our high school and middle school parents as well. So obviously more information to come on that, but we felt like these were two good places to start for this one. Okay. So next steps. So really, as an admin team, we're starting some work in terms of trying to finalize the process of the best way for us to collect this evidence and measure our outcomes. If you look at 200 schools, you'll see 200 different ways that schools do this. So we're trying to figure out a way that's going to make the most sense for us and in a way that's easily reportable, because we want to put all these things on our website so that community can see it, families can see it, to be able to get a good idea of kind of where we are with this. September 25th is our first professional development day, so I will be meeting with each building and going over our action steps. You're kind of the first group of people, other than the admin team, to see and hear what those action steps are. So we'll roll that out to the staff on the 25th. I need to get into our website and update our strategic plan information because all of our old stuff is on there still. And then providing stakeholders, including the board, evidence of progress no less than 4 times per year. So, kind of a lot, right? I mean, it was a big process, but we're excited. I know we feel really good about our action steps and our plan for this year, and we know it's going to be big work, but we're eager to get moving. So,
Thanks for sharing.
with
Thank
that,
you.
okay. Don't start talking yet. Hang on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Alicia, who?
I know, I'm sweating. Okay.
Okay, moving on to our 23-24 board goals. This was talked about at our board development, and now it's actually in writing, but for us to look at, have some discussion. It's linked currently to the agenda, but looking at that, first one was support the administration, and then the 3 points behind that, or underneath it, sorry, is set 2 superintendent progress feedback sessions. And then we had originally said January and July, but moved that to December, June, prior to the first of the year. And then each board member supports their feedback with appropriate examples when we're doing that. The other piece was encourage and support professional development, and actions will match understood board member roles. Discussion or questions regarding number 1?
Letter C seems pretty vague to me. Can we have, we had professional development, but it's not like we had any written document that came out of there, or a list or anything. Are you referring to the board protocols that are listed on our agendas? Or is there any, the word understood? How do we know we all understand the same thing?
We could word it to say actions will match board protocols, or actions will match understood board protocols.
I would feel comfortable with that because we have a list of them and they're written and they're on our agenda.
I think it went back a little bit to some of the discussion during our board development with what our roles as a board member was, but that's not necessarily, outlined in the document like you're saying, Lori, so, like looking at different policies that we have as far as like board member behavior and code of conduct, those types of things. I don't know, I think that could be kind of a broad area. Thoughts from others?
I think it seems kind of vague also. I'm a little confused about what we're trying to accomplish with the way it's read. I think if you refer to a specific protocol, that would be better.
So currently our protocols, they're they're on our agenda every time. So do we want to go more to that and word it protocols?
The document itself is, the goals is kind of vague. It's not a bylaw
Yeah.
or a policy, it's what we're
Yeah.
aiming for.
Right.
And with letter B, the discussion I remember having in the professional development that we had, and this is under number 1, support the administration. I remember we talked a bit about supporting Shannon's professional development. Is that what you're talking about there? Because then we have number 3 that's talking about board development. That's separate,
Right.
correct?
Right, encourage and support professional development of the superintendent.
Yeah, okay.
So actions will match. Just thinking how to word that third one. Actions will match
Board protocols or understood board protocols?
Bruce, do you have a comment?
I couldn't hear you, Lori. Is that what?
Yep, that's what I said.
Okay.
But the protocols aren't,
That's not really the point of.
It's
No.
really not under the
Yeah.
support
Right.
administration.
No,
Yeah.
I think where this one's going is that our role is to hire the superintendent,
Oh.
evaluate the superintendent, and to review and update policy. That's our role. And I think this one kind of comes in line with this, our role isn't to hire people, our role other than superintendent. So to me,
Right.
that's what I meant as roles, that through our policy, and we speak through our minutes,
Mhm.
hire and evaluate superintendent. Those are our roles. Does that make sense?
Mhm. That makes.
So I think
know.
that's maybe where that was going.
So to go with that then, because that does, that, now it's coming back to me, the fourth. So if we
No.
put those things then maybe as, I think you had started doing that a little bit, Shannon, like a 1, 2, 3 underneath. Like what our role is, and that would help them support administration. Right?
Yeah.
Can you say that again, what you just said?
Yeah, I think it was.
Because I like the bullet points.
Review and update policy. Hire and evaluate superintendent. What else is it?
What was that?
2 minutes ago.
Budget.
Well, budget.
But we don't.
Corrected budget policy.
No.
Yeah.
I think there's a statute that lists a whole bunch of things. And I will try to find it and send an email, but I don't think I'll
Of the
be able
board
to
roles?
find it.
Of board roles, is that what
No,
you're?
of board roles, is that what you meant? Send
Yeah.
our
Yes.
roles, yes, I believe there are. I believe there is.
But this is getting to what we've talked about in professional development.
Yeah.
With Lee,
Yep,
right? That's what you're saying here?
yep,
This is what we've all agreed on is we hire and evaluate superintendent, review and update policy.
oh, I think I said, communicate through our minutes, is that the other one? I mean, that doesn't really do any superintendent, but I think the first two are kind of what we're here for. Unless.
I think that clarifies. That
That makes more
clarifies.
sense that. Okay. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Then number 2, support the strategic plan process. So being able to explain the components and purpose of the strategic plan, reviewing expectations for timeline and process, and review progress and action steps. Anything to add or change or take out for that goal?
I guess what would we be doing by reviewing expectations during the process? Because Shannon stated she's gonna present to us 4 times a year. Roughly, or to everybody. Review expectations.
Maybe B isn't really needed.
Yeah, I think it goes
I
to C.
think like B and C are kind of, I
Yeah,
think we could
review
just.
progress and action steps, I mean, that's what we
That's
did
kind
tonight,
of
and that's what I think
redundant.
we'll keep doing.
So are you guys okay to take B out? Okay,
I'm good.
Lori, are you okay with that? With taking, if we
B
took
out?
B out,
Yes.
just so it's not quite as redundant. And we want these to stay, I mean, pretty simple and straight to the point. And then 3, ongoing board development. So support the purpose of ongoing board development, establish board development schedule, and attend and complete expected tasks as requested. Anything to change, add, take out with 3? Okay. So, is everybody good then? Anything else to change with anything or to add? Okay, then we'll keep moving on. Next on our agenda is the structure of work sessions discussion. Did you kind of want to start this out, Shannon? The structure of work sessions?
Sure. Really, this came from at our last professional development session. You know, you guys ended up engaging in a discussion of potentially talking about, is there some way to maybe shift or restructure how we've been doing work sessions. I know at that time we talked about some strategies that we used to use. You know, admin sitting at the table, rearranging the tables, so it's really more of truly working versus presenting, if that makes sense. And I think this came from, and I don't remember which one of you brought it up, but at one of our work sessions, you know, our admin team is kind of sitting here, and I know they're kind of feeling like, can we talk, should we talk? You know, I think engaging in a good conversation of, is the way that it's working right now, is that working? And I Lee had suggested even maybe thinking, or not thinking of, but calling it something different than a work session. So he had thrown out some ideas of some things that other schools have used, just to kind of try to differentiate the work that's done at these meetings versus the work that's done at the regular meeting. And maybe nothing changes, which is great, but that was why Lacey and I had put it on here, because it had come up at our professional development and thought it was worth at least some additional conversation in the event that you wanted to make any changes. So from there, it's up to you guys.
Well, I think, you know, we did have the discussion too, to really be cognizant that when things are put on that work session, that it's not, we're not voting on things at that work session, and that is at the regular session. So, I mean, things have happened, I think they've happened when it's more of a time-sensitive issue versus, I mean, it's a decision that needs to be put on right away, but really trying to not let that happen. But yeah, setting up a little bit maybe more informally, so then it can be a little bit more discussion-like when we do have other people presenting and giving information.
So how do we change that?
We would just decide to change it. It's really not anything that necessarily has to, I mean, it's more so discussion on our end of what we feel comfortable with.
And I think for work sessions, if we know we're gonna have, you know, a back and forth with the administrative team, I mean, I think we, you know, finish our horseshoe here and they are over there, and if they go up and present and come back and we're discussing it, I would like them so that they feel they are part of the meeting, because a lot of times they are, and we ask, and I know you guys did for policy, you've asked them for their input, so they're here explaining, or, I think they should be a part of these meetings if, you know, if there's items that are, they've developed or pertain to them, for sure, and feel like they can speak up.
I think that's
Whenever.
that comfortable level, you know,
Yeah,
so
and like
it's
it's-
not necessarily here's I'm presenting, it's more so
Can I
those,
speak up?
yeah.
Well, and that being said, you know, we had discussed the videotaping, you know, it would still be open meetings, but I think if we're in a horseshoe form, we're more casual, we're able to communicate better, as opposed to somebody having to go stand at the podium to present and have the camera on them. I think just keep the meetings open, no cameras, you know, just so we can have that open communication, but it's not where they feel like they have to be standing somewhere their back is gonna be to,
For the work session.
for the work session only, yes. But
And
just,
it's-
you know, we want people here, that's
It's
great.
it's still an open meeting, it has to
Mhm.
be, obviously, but having it more comfortable. I don't know, I think discussion, and I think that team piece of it is that having other, you know, administration that's a part of that, not feeling like they're giving us that information, we're having those conversations, and it's not just, you know, us and them.
I agree.
So I think then getting a little creative on how, you know, we kind of set it up to make sure it can be a little bit more of a discussion,
Mhm.
you know, like you said, like more of a horseshoe or.
That's
looking at it
specific
that way.
to that kind of meeting, when you are presenting, or every work session?
Well, it would be just if they're involved in that work session.
I think if if any administration or administrative people are here, I think they should be able to be part of these meetings. I don't think there's any reason not to. They're in the school. I mean, they have some feedback and shouldn't have to feel like they have to sit back there and wait for input, you know. I don't know. You know, I hear too about videotape or not videotaping. I don't have a problem videotaping. I don't think they need to get up there and present. I mean, I think the thing can still just be on kind of like it is now and present, and even if we, you know, everything's linked, so it's not like they can't follow along. Someone can't follow along here, but they can just present and hear the discussion that's going on. Like you said, you know, we kind of set it up, oh, we've already been videotaping, let's just keep, especially if it's just pointing like this. That's just my, I don't agree with it. I know what you mean, sometimes it'd be nice to not, but have more open discussions, so I'm open to whatever.
Well, and just looking at what the camera can see, we could slide this down and do the U that direction, so we're all visible within there if you wanted.
Yeah, I agree. So if they're here for a work session, they sit at a table with us.
I think so.
Rather than presenting. Maybe a little more informal. Open dialogue.
So I've heard a couple different comments about taping that work session. Other thoughts?
We're using it, people are used to it, I would say just keep doing it.
I kind of feel the same way. It would be nice to give people the ability to speak a little more openly about what's on their mind, but
I like it when I
I don't want to hide it from it, you know.
When you
And
get, yeah.
And then you can watch it again, you know, or listen to it, or see if we have it there. It helps, because I can go back to one meeting that the audio was broke, and that was like years ongoing, like, that one meeting, couldn't hear what was going on. And we referenced that one meeting multiple, it happened to be a pretty important one, and there was no audio for it. So it would have been really nice.
I go both ways. Like I see that keeping it, you know, more, and even for admin, I think keeping it more comfortable. So not being on, but I think then too, you're taking away something that we've already kind of established. And then I look at people that do watch. It's like, oh, you know, having comments, maybe like, oh, you know, we're taking it away. So people, I think it would get a little negative feedback for what the purpose would be, because we already have it. But- Okay, so we're keeping it basically, but then we're gonna add, so during those work sessions, creating a little bit more, I mean, we obviously still have their agenda, we still have it, but creating a little bit more relaxed as far as when they're presenting or different things, they're with us, so we can have more open dialogue.
Abe, there's an empty chair here. Do you want to join us?
Dave, would you be okay with that? Like that?
At the table?
I mean, yeah.
Either way.
No problem.
We've done it, over the years, we've been at the table and we've been like this, so I think it's fine.
Okay. Great. So then moving on, you're up, Dave, for quarter four budget to actual report.
Do you want me to sit there, or do you want to scroll, or what works good?
You wanna scroll? Or, you talk, I'll scroll.
Okay. And are we trying to start right at 7 for the budget hearing, or should I go through it quickly, or normal? Normal, okay. All right, so here's the wrap up as far as the budget to actual reports go for last year, for 22-23. The third of 3 reports. The first one for this year, 23-24, will be early February. We do the first one with the halfway point of the fiscal year, so through December. You can scroll a little bit to the bottom of the section. So we're in the process, we're still closing the year, the 22-23 year, you can see in that big paragraph there. We had the regular financial audit field work on site at the end of August. We still have another separate audit section component called the single audit, which deals only with federal grants. And so for this year and last year, and I guess last year and the year before and this year, these are big ones because we have huge ESSER dollars. So this is another kind of audit component that they have to be here on site again. That'll be in October. So the point being, this is an ongoing process. The audits aren't complete and finalized until December, but nonetheless, we can look at where we're at in this report. We can consider everything that we see here as really, really good estimates at this point. I would note, when you look at some of these, the other two quarterly reports, we always talk about expenditures without the operating transfer, without the big transfer at the end of the year from Fund 10 to Fund 27. And so we maintain that convention for expenditures in this report, in all the charts and graphs, until the end, when we talk about cash flow. So the big cash flow charts now, those are going to include the operating transfers, the end-of-year transactions, a whole bunch of receivable money, which means like the tax payment that we get from the county in August, which is after the fiscal year, a bunch of grant claiming that happened that we receive after the end of the fiscal year. So all that kind of gets put onto the books in June, even though it hasn't actually occurred yet. And we also include in the expenditure side, for instance, payrolls for teachers. They still have payrolls in July and August from the prior fiscal year. So that money hasn't left yet, but that expenditure has been recorded. So all these things are showing up at the end of June because that's the end of the fiscal year. And so we're getting the totals here. But I just wanted to point out, we're going to stick with the convention like we've done every report. We're not including in the charts the expenditure side, the fund transfer to Fund 27. But on the revenue side, you'll see that's higher because that includes all revenues for Fund 10. And so in this case, that ends up being, for this year, approximately net, approximately even. So if you're saying, well, why is one this, 18 million and one's 20 million? That's why.
Could you explain before you go on what Fund 27 is?
Fund 27 is the special education fund.
And we get federal dollars for that also.
Some. Yeah. We get some federal money for that, we get some state aid for that, and then the balance is made up from a transfer from Fund 10. Because that fund has to be zero every year. It can't have a fund balance, positive or negative. It has to be net every year. So we balance that out with Fund 10 revenue. All right, so we can go to the next page. So expenditure by function. This is the normal format we see. And I forgot to mention, you can all look at this on your Chromebook or laptop. People at home can look at it. You just simply go to the business services page. From the main website, you go to business services and operation under district. And then on the right-hand side, you see financial reports. You can click on that and go to quarterly budget to actual reports. So I should have mentioned that at the start. And we can jump back to the...
Okay, sorry.
And there they all are?
There we go.
All right, and back to the report. So if you want to see it closer, you can jump on there at any point. So here's the summary function expenditures. We see where the budget was, where we ended up for actual expenditure and the fiscal year-to-date percentage. This, I would say, categorized as very similar to most years. You can see that at the bottom there, the bold line at the very bottom, the sum, 99.3% of expenditure, excluding the fund transfer. So that's pretty close to what we expected. There's some notes regarding the table. Some of the big budgets are included in one. Sometimes the allocations for some budgets end up getting, the budget is allocated one place, but the expenditures are coded to another place, simply because of how it works, what's being purchased. And then a big one that we see and growing every year, the 430,000 purchased instructional services, that's the name. That is tuitions, the biggest component being open enrollment tuitions, which is an end-of-year transaction. but also would include college in the schools or transfer credits with tech colleges. And we can go to the, we can go through the pie charts. Well, you can look at these. This is now, we're at the end. We have the budget, matching colors, and you can see the percentages that we arrived at for each of these summary functions on the second pie underneath. Pretty similar. The instructional summary functions ended up a tiny bit higher, and the support operational side a tiny bit lower, so pretty close overall. We go to the next page. And here's even more summarized: instruction, support services, non-program transactions. The non-program transactions, again, are generally the tuitions, and the biggest component of tuitions is open enrollment out. That's an expenditure to other districts that we pay. There's the chart, and then underneath, the expense ratio. This is, at this point, at the end of the year now, it's just something you can look at and compare what was the budget comprised of compared to last year, compared to the budget, were we close at the end. Throughout the year, it kind of illustrates timing. And we go to the next page now. By object, this shows what has been purchased. There's a couple notes up there. Again, sometimes the budgets are allocated in some places but expended in others, and that's normal. It can vary year over year. We were close with a lot of things. We had insurance and judgments, for instance. We had a expend some money in the deductible for a phishing investigation that we had to do during the year. So things come up. Sometimes we're over, sometimes we're under. This is very similar to other years. When we get into closer examination, just down below a little bit, that next chart down, you can refer to this and then look at the notes on the next page. And you can see this is a good selection of areas, cost areas, with a wide variance of percentage fiscal year to date expenditure. So it's a good snapshot of how this year kind of went. You can see the snow removal cost, for instance, 260% of budget. Now granted, the budget was $37,000, but still, this was our record snowfall cost for removal this year. You can see in the notes underneath that chart, which on the next page, I kind of break down each of them a little bit. The tuitions we talked about. IT and CIA, kudos to Trish and to the IT department. They were right on, just perfect expenditure for their budgets. Sub costs were a bit lower across the board. Legal fees, significantly reduced from the prior few years, and still under budget this year as well. I think this is kind of around 30,000. That's where we might consider to be maybe the higher goal we're shooting for now. So bringing it down to this point going forward. Obviously, it depends what happens during a given year, but that's, I think, a reasonable goal. I mentioned the winter here. It was mild but snowy. So gas and oil, we saved money there. Snow removal, record high. Electricity costs, we expected them to go up. They went up even higher than we anticipated, though you can see on the chart, not by a significant amount. Transportation, we did save money based on how the contract was for last year for the days that we had remote learning. So we saved some money there. We did actually have a route reduced at one point, another savings of money. Extracurricular trip cost is going up. Last year it went up, this year it went up. It's significantly increasing because any of those extra trips, the costs are going up. It's hard to get if you need a coach bus, it's hard to find one. It's really expensive when you do. So costs are going up for extracurricular trips. And then HRA expenditures. We had 2 years in a row of, for us, record low HRA expenditures. Now we're back, and you can go to the charts underneath. So online here, you can see the 22-23 line is the bright pink one. If you print it, it's kind of purple. But it starts low, and it hops up in December-ish or so, and it stays above average. whereas the blue and the red line at the bottom are the last 2 years, record low. And you can look at the next chart underneath it, you can see budgets compared to actual expenditures over time. And there's a little note underneath the budgets, how they're allocated, what the costs were based on. We started out at 60% utilization, we reduced to 45, we reduced to 40. So you can see we're actually getting pretty good budgeting over time, but then this year it popped up, the cost was a bit higher. In the special ed fund, so you can see the regular ed fund, 20 million, special ed fund, 3 million for expenditure. Came in under budget. You can see that compared to the prior year. You can see it illustrated graphically, and then a cost ratio below that as well. On the revenue side, I have a little blurb there about how the transfer to special ed, because the expenditures, as you saw, were a little lower. The revenues in the special ed side were also a little higher than expected. All in all, making it so that the transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 27 was lower than expected. That saves Fund 10 expenditure costs. So that was one of the big, the significant points that helped reduce the Fund 10 expenditure. On the Fund 10 revenue side, oop, that's still there. On the Fund 10 revenue side, we had some revenues from the state. They were additional or unexpected. A big one, and I didn't mention it here, I might actually go back and add it. In the 200 revenue from local sources, one thing that was unexpected was interest income. As interest rates climbed up, the income that we earned on cash and accounts significantly exceeded what we expected. So that also helped in the 200 level. So now you can scroll. Cash flow timing. This is just good. I mentioned this at the start. It's good to, and you can look at the charts too. It's good to just notice and see month over month, our revenues don't keep up with our expenditures. And so during the year, we do need to use our line of credit for cash flow purposes. And then this chart by month, and then the next one down, cumulative, you can see in June, it hops up a bunch. That's where we're including all those transactions that happen either in June or after June. You still record them for June, and so that's why each of them is really high. But you can see they both also end up at the same point, which again, this year we ended up net. So summary. I mentioned again, we're still kind of mid-audit, but we have really good estimates at this point. General fund expenditures a bit under, and revenues a bit more. Overall balanced result. I mentioned again the special ed transfer. We had planned to claim the full ESSER amount this year. We didn't. We're carrying over $250,000. That will be used this year in 23-24. And that, as we've talked about in prior discussions, that helps our starting point for this year. And you'll see that now immediately in the budget hearing to follow. So I did go through that kind of quick, but what questions do you have?
Any questions? Thank you, Dave.
Well, if you think of anything, please call me or shoot me an email.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Nice job. Mr. Head.
Okay, looking at our topics for action, is there a motion to approve the personnel update, athletics, the resolution authorizing a taxable tax, a donation, and rolled invoices? I'd like to do it separately, we can do that.
I just have one question
Yeah.
about the donations. Do you track that money that came in? So that 5,000 from the anonymous donor, is it tracked in a separate fund so it doesn't get spent somewhere else, and to know
That's a
how
good
long
question.
it'd take to spend it?
No, that's a good question. It depends on the donation. If the donation has a purpose, then we track it to make sure it's used for that purpose. and many of them do. Like, there's a lot of music-related donations, for instance. So yes, if it has to be for a specific purpose, we put it in the appropriate place to track that. Sometimes it's Fund 21 if it's gonna be multiple years. Sometimes it's Fund 10 if it's just immediate.
So this will be tracked somewhere, because it was very specific, correct?
Any other questions, or would someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve 11A, B, C, D, and E.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll start with Once More with Legal. Marge, would you like to start?
Just wanted to know if everybody got the school news this time around, like a week ago or so in the mail. There's some very interesting articles in there, one of which is looking over the budget and the bills each time, not just by the clerk and the treasurer, but we should all know what's going on. So it's not a bad thing to look at the board bills. So hopefully you'll read that. There's a good article in there. There's a couple of good articles in
Are
there.
you done with that? I don't think I got that.
You usually get it in the mail.
Do you
Everybody
need
on the
copies of
board.
it, maybe?
I can make copies
We'll
of
talk
that.
after.
Yeah.
Got my copy.
Do you have one?
Lori?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Ian?
Thanks for ever donating.
Matt?
I was gonna say the same exact thing. Thanks for the donation to whoever that was from.
I just want to say awesome for all the work with every staff member, welcoming back our students. I know it's good for them to be back, and I know people have been busy, and welcome back to staff and students, so. Bruce?
I don't know if people saw the Shannon emailed that link out for the Handbook reading thing online, so if you get a chance, that's pretty cool that we're on the news. You know, I think I sent something when we were in the paper, like, oh, that's kind of a big deal. We're never in the paper anymore. We used to be in the paper and the news all the time, and now we're on the actual TV, so that was really cool for that group. So just when you see them, just say something to them. I know it means a lot just for everyone there. And then I'm gonna say it again because I say it every year with the live streaming. That they do that. That's awesome. I was in Turtle Lake watching a different game, cheering for the Somerset game. People wondering why I'm cheering Skyline. Nothing's going on, so it was awesome. So I'm glad they keep doing that.
Okay, Sheree?
I think we need a handbag garden at each school. I love that. What a neat option for the kids. Congratulations on getting Best High School again by US News and World Report. We were listed in there. Congratulations to Alicia on the birth of Archie. What a cutie. And after much consideration, I am submitting my resignation to the Somerset School Board effective at the end of our annual meeting, September 11th, 2023. I want to thank the Somerset District staff and our community for putting their trust in me to represent them in this role. It's not a job I took lightly or took for granted. Most of our school board members have been wonderful to work with, and we've seen positive changes with the board development we've invested in. I want to encourage the board to continue this process, as there are a number of areas that still need improvement. With this vacancy, the board will have the opportunity to appoint a replacement for the duration of my term until the spring election. My seat, along with 2 others, will be open on that spring ballot. We have had very engaged parents and community members over the past few years, and I would encourage all of you to come to board meetings or watch online, as this is a great way to know what's happening in our schools and how you can be involved. It does take a village to raise a child, and I'm grateful to have been part of that village, so thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening? Or we motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Is there a
Second.
second? And any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned at 7:15. Okay, and then we will now be moving into our annual budget hearing and annual meeting. So, if you are here for this, please be sure to sign in on the attendance sheet. It's right on the first row. And then we'll just have to keep track and record of anyone attending the meeting.
Restart, please.
My kid's still on.
Want to separate?
No, no. I labeled it as both. So if someone's looking for just this part, fast forward it.
What do you else have to sit over there?
You can sit wherever you want. I'm gonna sit over there. Excuse me. It's a meeting of the, everybody gets to make motions and vote, so that's the way they used to be run. Because
Anyone in the
we
audience?
all sit over there.
Yeah.
You can do what you want.
I'm gonna roll. You get placed fourth or something. So you got points. Yeah, you got 6 goals, pretty good. Awesome.
Shannon, do we have any more copies of this so that Danielle can have one? I think there were.
Lori. Lacey, does Danielle sign in?
No, she needs to, and Dave.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay.
So you have to figure out that.
Well,
I don't need this one.
Yeah.
I walk in, you say English, right?
So they have a reading section. You guys go first. Budget meeting, or no?
so then I do that. I do all this. This is mine.
Yeah, first I go on.
Here. Well,
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, we're starting a little bit late, but it is 7:20, and I will call the budget hearing and annual meeting to order. Together, we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. The district welcome is the next item. You can reference that on page 3 of the annual meeting booklet. If anyone in attendance wishes to address the assembly, please adhere to the following guidelines. Stand, state name and municipality in which you reside, 5 minutes per topic per person. Matters pertaining to specific individuals or sensitive subjects may be tabled for discussion outside the public assembly. Thank you for the following agenda as presented. Now, our Director of Business Services and Operations, Dave Gerberding, will present our budget hearing information.
Thank you, Lacey. So if you turn to numbered page 4, we'll start with the budget planning calendar. This is extremely similar to prior years. It highlights some of the important things that happen throughout the year as far as budget is concerned. Third Friday count, the date of retirement notifications. It mentions some of the quarterly reports, one of which we just had in the work session, and also some of the department presentations to the board that we do now in the springtime, and some of the different requirements for certifying levies, notifying the municipalities, publishing the budget in the paper for the budget hearing. And that is the next page, numbered page 5. The next, let's see, pages 5 and 6 are the summary budget format for all funds for this year and for the previous year, 22-23, and the year prior to that as well. So the 21-22 year, those numbers are final. The 22-23 year, that's unaudited but considered very good estimates at this time. And then the budget for 23-24 is what we're looking at right now. And this budget, like I said, was in the paper, the Star Observer, the week before last. And so all of this information is current as of the timeline prior to that to get it into the paper with that timeline. So it's already, there's information that's new since then. This is a step in the process as far as budgeting goes and as far as adopting an original budget in October. The end of October is when we'll get to that point. So again, this is a snapshot in time. This is the summary of all funds. The first chunk being the general fund, Fund 10 for general operations. You have revenues and expenditures. This next section, the special projects fund, that includes funds 21 and 27, so special ed, and then 21 is special projects. A lot of that's donations and ongoing projects. And the fund balance in that is entirely Fund 21 because Fund 27 cannot have a fund balance. The next section, debt service fund, that's 38 and 39. Right now we only have 39, which is referendum approved debt service. Capital projects fund, that's where we have expended the funds for previous referenda. So the 2019 referendum, that is almost gone and will be completed this year. You can see there's 19,000 left there. The food service fund is under that. On the next page, the community service fund, for us, for our purposes currently, we only have school-age care in there, almost entirely school-age care. And it's been a very successful program, and we're hoping to continue to expand that to serve whoever wants to have care in the district. Then you can see the all funds total, that's where it simply adds everything together from all the funds. And then at the very bottom, the proposed property tax levy, you can see the prior 2 years and the budget for this year. You'll see that the general fund levy is decreasing slightly. The referendum debt service levy is increasing slightly, and that was done, this is, you'll see this is what we're voting on later. what I did is I matched that. I matched the total school levy, 10,562,000. And I did that because the plan has been for the most recently passed referendum to split that up into 2 chunks, sell some of it yet this year, in 2023 calendar year, at a bank qualified amount, which means less than 10 million because we would get better rates. And even at the time of sending this to the paper, that was still the plan. It had moved from September to maybe November. But talking with our financial advisor just last week, he's not seeing much benefit to that, much interest rate benefit to that, and interest rates have been pretty steady at a higher level, and he was kind of hoping to see some change there. So now we're thinking that it might just be an early spring, maybe January to March, probably January actually, sale of the entire amount, all at once. And so the point being, as part of those transactions, we're going to have an interest payment for that, and probably a principal payment for that sale yet in 2024. And so we have to levy for that now. We don't know the exact amount. Any additional amount that wouldn't have to be applied to that can be built into it so that our cost overall in the sale is lower. So all that being said, it's similar to last year where we're levying some amount that we already have the authority to levy because we have a significant amount of debt service to make over the years, so we can levy that full amount by letter of law. And so we're going to levy some amount in advance, and that will help our sale of the next bonds probably in January. All that being said, this number will change. I matched it because that's no increase. When we get into the charts in a few minutes, or really quickly actually, and we look at the municipalities, we look at the overall levy history, we can see that even with this, even with matching, where we were at last year, we had said in the sale of the referendum that we would expect the mill rate to increase slightly. Well, even with this, the mill rate is decreasing a fair amount. So it all kind of builds together. I just wanted to pull that out and highlight that because that is one of the things that we're voting on later on in the annual meeting. On numbered page 22, the approval of proposed 23-24 budget and tax levy. The tentative sum, the dollar amount there is for operations, that's Fund 10. The mill rate is the all funds tax levy mill rate. And so that's the same as every year, but I wanted to call that out. That's what it's based on right now. We will finalize this in October. All right, so all that being said, moving on to numbered page 7. This is the same information as the prior 2 pages, but in the detail format. So there's many more lines, especially in the general fund and in Fund 27, for revenues and for expenditures to be broken out.
Hold on one second.
Yep.
I think you're off on your pages.
Oh, I'm
This is page 13.
13.
Not here.
Yeah.
You're just here.
Can you scroll up? Okay, so I'm looking at, yeah, keep going up a little bit. I'm looking at the numbers on the bottom here.
We're on 7.
Yep. So numbered page 7, that's where it starts. But we can scroll through that because like I said, this is just the detail format. We publish in the paper the summary format. This is a little more detailed, but it's the exact same information. So we can scroll through this, Shannon, thank you, to numbered page 12. Right there. So this is, like I had mentioned, the tax levy history. And you can see the equalized value, the levy broken down by operations, Fund 10, and debt service, the total levy, and then the mill rate. And you see the prior 3 years, I believe, continue to be the lowest mill rates since revenue limits started. That's continuing for this year. And again, that's a mathematical calculation in large part based on the second column from the left, equalized valuation, where again, we increased 19% last year, we're increasing an estimated 14.5% this year, of which a quarter per Department of Revenue, a quarter of that approximately is net new construction. That's ongoing, obviously, the new construction. So matching the total the total levy proposed in the total column, 10.5 million, matching it to last year, the mill rate still drops $1. Then you can see underneath that, the levy by municipality. That's historical over time. You see the percentage change based on the total levy proposed up above, the percentage change for each municipality, and I put in there the equalized value percentage change for each municipality as well.
So that mill rate takes into account that newest past referendum.
Well, so as I said, we haven't sold it yet, so we don't know what the cost of that debt service will be for sure, but it's going to be something, so we need to levy in advance some amount. And so, yes, it's not the exact amount because we don't know that yet, but we are levying something already for that because we're going to start paying on it next year. And the levy for debt service, you always levy for your upcoming debt service. The minimum that we would levy would be the debt service we have to pay in that calendar year, you levy in the fall of the prior year. So now we levy for 2024.
So even with this, all this construction that'll happen, there's not gonna be some significant jump because you've got that built into this.
Yes, yes, that's the main point.
So even with the new construction, we're still gonna see a decrease in.
Well,
mill
that's
rate.
yes, exactly. So we were, all the materials that we talked about, we said, well, it's gonna be a 2-cent increase, right? Overall, we're looking at a $1 decrease.
Decrease.
But that's not final.
Yep.
Very likely, we may consider, based on recommendation, what we think the sale will look like, so that we get the best deal, overall, the best financial deal for the district. We may increase a little bit, but the mill rate is absolutely going down. It is absolutely gonna go down.
Do the TIDs from the village make a difference? Or factor in that?
Yes, yep. And that was built in, so there's all this new, you can see, if you look in the second chart, this one here by municipality, there you can see the very bottom percentage is equalized value change by municipality. The village has the biggest chunk, the most increase there. If the TID's coming online or if it's just new construction, that all adds. It's not just inflationary. So we'll go to the next page, numbered page 13. It has, these are simply charts that I like to include every year just to, again, show, here's a 5-year total levy history, all funds, levy history. We're proposing at this point in time to match last year's, but as I have said, that is estimated at this time. We will set the final one in October. And then underneath that, again, just graphical representation of the change in mill rate over time. And then on numbered page 14, the next page, here is our current outstanding debt service. So the 2019 bonds are the left column of bonds, apart from the dates there. And that's what's remaining to levy for at this point in time. The 7.95 million, that's a payment that's coming up very shortly in 2023 in the fall, but we levied for that last year because it's 2023. So all that we have right now to levy for is the 2019 bonds. And to that, we're going to add our new sale. And so that's where we'll have more discussion. We'll have a proposed levy related to all this, but this is our debt service outstanding at this moment. At this moment, all there is the 2019 bonds. And you can see the total outstanding. And I would mention, before I end the budget hearing, that on numbered page 16, the treasurer's report, you can see an extremely summarized version of the year of 2022-23, what happened in all the funds. You can see at the far right, the change in fund balance. This is what we're approving when you approve the treasurer's report, is a summary review of this data at this point in time of what happened last year in all the funds. And then again, on numbered page 22, that's the approval of the proposed budget and levy. And this is the same format as we use every year. So I'll jump back to the numbered page 14. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain those, or else we can end the budget hearing at this time and go to the annual meeting.
Does anyone have any questions for Dave? Okay, at this time, we will move into the annual meeting. We'll be asking for a, wait. We'll be asking for a variety of motions during this meeting. Anyone can make a motion, but when you please read exactly as written and state your first and last name along with your municipality for each motion you make. Our first task is to elect a chairperson. And this can be found on page 15 as far as wording wise.
I, Cherie Link, move to elect Lacey Oster as chairperson of the 2023 Somerset School District Annual Meeting.
Is there a second?
Cherie, what municipality do you live in?
Oh, sorry.
Somerset Township.
Thank you. I'll second Lori Belargin, Somerset Township.
Okay. And Laura, do we vote on that?
We vote on everything.
Everything. So we'll just do a all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I will continue then. Next is to elect a teller. Is there a motion?
Hi, Ian McDonald, Village of Somerset, move to elect Bruce Belargin as teller of the 2023 Somerset School District Annual Meeting.
Is there a second?
Matt Fugalt, Somerset Township.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Second.
Yeah.
Next is to dispense and approve the treasurer's report. Is there a motion?
I, Lori Belargin, Somerset Township, move to dispense with the reading of and to approve the treasurer's report at the Somerset School District Annual Meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Say your name.
Oh, sorry, Ian McDonald, Village of Somerset, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Then, moving on. At this time, our superintendent, Dr. Shannon Donnelly, will review our current enrollment numbers, strategic plan, and district calendar.
Yes, so on numbered page 17, you can see some historical data in terms of our enrollment. What you see there, and I have it up here now on the second chart. These numbers were effective 9/5/23. This time of year, as you can imagine, it's still fluctuating. We are still having kids kind of move in and out, still getting a few new kids, still losing a few new kids. So, but this is where we are right now. I'll move into the next part here. So at the work session, I did a pretty big overview of our strategic plan, but again, this just gives you some idea of our new 23-28 strategic plan, looking at our pillars as we are really working toward serving our student staff, being diligent in our operations and serving our community, and then the strategies underneath that. And then we also put in our 23-24 Somerset School District calendar. If anyone is wondering how we are navigating our school year, where we have professional development days, you know, our conferences, office hours, those kinds of things, that is a great place to look. That's all I have.
Okay. We'll now be approving resolutions. So if you look on page 20, you can go forward with that. Authorization to acquire real estate. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to Matt Fugalt, Somerset Township.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Ian McDonald, Village of Somerset.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. Will you read that?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the School District of Somerset is authorized during the 2023-2024 school year to acquire real estate. Matt Fugalt, Somerset Township.
And do you stay with that second, Ian?
I do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Designate sites for district buildings and provide for the erection of suitable school buildings. Is there a motion?
Lori Belargin, Somerset Township, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the School District of Somerset is authorized during the 23-24 school year to designate sites for district buildings and provide for the erection of suitable school buildings.
Is there a second?
I will second. Cherie Link, Somerset Township.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Direct and provide for the prosecution and defense of legal procedures. Is there a motion?
I, Cherie Link, make a motion to, let's see, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the School District of Somerset is authorized during the 2023-2024 school year to direct and provide for the prosecution and defense of legal procedures. Cherie Link, Somerset Township.
Is there a second?
Marge Below, Somerset Township.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. School board expenses, is there a motion?
Marge Below, Somerset Township, be it resolved by the electors of the School District of Somerset that the School Board of Education during the 2023-24 school year shall be reimbursed for actual and necessary expenses for travel when required.
Is there a second?
Lori Belargin, Somerset Township, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of proposed 2023-2024 budget tax levy. Is there a motion?
Be it resolved that there shall be levied upon the taxable property of the School District of Somerset the tentative sum of $6,796,756 for the purpose of defraying the operation and maintenance of the public schools for the 23-24 school year. The projected all funds mill rate shall be $6.91 per thousand value.
Is
Lori.
there, sorry, Lori.
Did I say my name
I
in?
thought you did it.
No.
Okay, Lori Belargin, Somerset Township.
Sorry. Is there a
Second by Matt Fugel, Somerset Township.
Policy on the disposal of unwanted equipment and supplies. Is there a motion?
Ian McDonald, Village of Somerset, be it resolved that the Board of Education of Somerset District, or the School District of Somerset is authorized during the 2023-2024 school year to sell and dispose of any tangible personal property belonging to the school district that is determined by the administration to be no longer needed for school purposes.
Is there a second?
Cherie Link, Somerset Township.
All in favor?
I don't think you voted on
Okay.
We did.
Did I not? I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back. We'll vote on that one. Thank you, Dave. So the policy of unwanted supplies, we'll say all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry, I'm going back to the budget tax levy. There was a motion and a second, and I failed to take the vote. So going back to the approval of proposed budget tax levy, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. School board salaries, is there a motion?
Marge Below, Somerset Township, be it resolved that by the electors of the School District of Somerset that all board members will receive $70 per meeting in which they are in attendance.
Is there a second?
Lori Belargin, Somerset Township.
Do we need any clarification for additional meetings for policy or anything like that? Or is this just?
This is just
Per
meetings.
board meeting.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Annual meeting date, is there a motion?
Ian McDonald, Village of Somerset, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the School District of Somerset is authorized to hold the 2024 annual school district meeting on Monday, September 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the School District Learning Center Conference Room, Section 120.08, 1 Wisconsin statutes.
Is there a second?
Hi, Bruce Blaine, Town of Somerset.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Adjourn Somerset School District 2023 meeting. Is there a motion?
I, Bruce Ballard, move to adjourn the 2023 Somerset School District annual meeting.
Is there a second?
Somerset Township.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is